You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I can do those things because I'm not a hero. I'm whatever Gotham needs me to be.
They'll hunt you.
You'll hunt me. You'll condemn me. Set the dogs on me. Because that's what needs to happen. Because sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes people deserve more. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded.
I used to tell my classes when I was back in the United States, why are we not asking the very same questions of BLM that we would any other representative? Do you have the interests of the people you claim to represent at heart? Do your policies and practice benefit the poor, working black class of black folk that you claim that you represent? Has your actions over the last 6-7 years led to a decrease in death in those populations? And if the answer to any of those questions are no, then they're lying. I've seen Cadillac commercials. I'm in Europe, so, I see these things late. Warner Brothers, somebody just bought millions of dollars of homes, right? These are black women who don't even represent the poor black women in black communities, much less the poor black men. So the question we have to ask ourselves then is, why are these leaders, right, being designated and rewarded? Again, this is what frustrates me. This is what frustrates me, because it's like we're so ideologically confined to think what people tell us. You're telling me that as an academic, I walk into the academy, I take black studies, I take gender studies, etc. I'm going to hear a whole history about how these poor working class black men from the South and the North during segregation had a whole civil rights movement that excluded black women's interests and benefited from patriarchy. All of them ended up dead, and the group that they said they were benefiting, most of the black men ended up poor because the jobs went to white women and then educated black women, right? This is how we got the gender disparity in higher ed. So that's the truth. So the facts say, well, black men really didn't have any empirical benefit, but you had a class of black men, certainly, right, that benefited from integration. But that's what I'm supposed to believe there. You fast forward to our time, alleged with the same suspicion of civil rights, and I have a whole class of people who work for nonprofits that are in bed with white liberals. They're getting funded and have connections to the Democratic National Party and platform, and I raise no questions about their leadership. People who are getting rich, buying $1 million homes. Nobody's killed these women. Nobody's exiled these women. But that's what's happened to the black people, specifically the black men of the 60s and 70s. You see, we've become numb, right, to actually asking questions. How is it possible that poor black men are dying and being killed? How is it possible that poor black men are dying and being killed by cops, and then the people representing them to white society become millionaires, signing deals with Warner Brothers and Cadillac? Nobody finds that suspicious. But at the same time, you want to castigate people who are still in jail, in isolation, in exile, because they shot at cops and they've defended themselves during the Black Power and the Civil Rights Movement. You see, this tells us something about the lack of seriousness we have in studying the history of black people. And it tells us something about our own political commitments, that we could look at this dynamic, want to castigate people who are dead, shot, etc., as trying to benefit from patriarchy or capitalism or whatever the case may be, but at the same time celebrate these people who are not even from the poor communities of the people who are being shot by police when they get $1 million deals. So BLM needs to be looked at with suspicion. It needs to be analyzed. It needs to be debated. And I'm not saying that you have to go completely negative or castigate the whole movement, but we're not even allowed to ask basic questions. Even when BLM came out and I started raising these kinds of questions, people suggested, oh, it's because you don't support feminism or intersectionality or female, all irrelevant. These are distractions. These are red herrings. None of that answers the question, do they fix the problem they claim that they're supposed to fix? And until we get the kind of intellectual courage to start having these debates as students or as academics, then you can't change the ideology. Because every time something happens to a black person, every time a movement starts on the streets, the idea is that black scholars have to conform. We have to conform and confirm. We are all in support of these ideas. But what happened to the skeptical moment? What happened to us, our critical thinking? Right? We're not allowed to have that because we have to be on the same page. So I think BLM is very dangerous, not in the sense that it's failed, right? I think it has empirically failed, but because it wasn't allowed to be questioned. And if the questioning resulted in them changing, or the question resulted in us having a different understanding, that's one thing. But being not allowed to question it and have your career threatened if you do, I think that's the kind of problem. So I think we should look at it with extreme suspicion.
That was Professor Tommy J. Curry of Edinburgh, going all Frank Underwood on BLM. And the question is, are male black scholars have been numbed? You know how you numb something? Like, say if you're getting a tooth pull or root canal, and they have to go in and shoot you with a numbing medication to numb out your gums, right? So you don't feel it. So it can't be heard, so that the nerves that register alarm can't go off, right? So are our male black scholars, or males period, black males period, being numbed to women's movements such as Black Lives Matter, to where it can't be questioned? Remember during the run up to the primaries, to the campaigns, of 2020, right? 2018, 2019, where black women were telling us to shut up. They're trying to numb our voices. Not only the everyday Joe's voices who didn't like what they saw in front of them, didn't like the way that things were going, and had questions, not objections, but just questions about certain candidates and their background, and viably so. They were legitimate questions that black men were asking about certain candidates, about certain movements, our vice president included. And the sign language, the shaming and the guilting that black women use on black men to numb them or silence them. And that's just the regular guys that had nothing to lose. We're not even talking about the academics that couldn't say anything. Like Tommy Curry says, where your careers are put in jeopardy just for you asking a question. I know there's brothers in the academy that are friends of Dr. Curry and Dr. Johnson and Dr. Gigi, lost jobs, not for speaking out or objecting, but simply asking questions. Simply asking questions about the welfare of not black women, but the welfare of black men. Black men are supposed to suffer in silence. Black men are supposed to go out on their shield and not even cry out, not even protest, not even question whether their sacrifice is appropriate or whether their sacrifice is worth it to them. And then the beneficiaries, as always, is not us. And then when we question where's our fair share, then we're blamed as patriarchs or misogynists. That's what's going on now. That's how come they don't like the manosphere. Now, the manosphere has harsh critique of the gynocracy, has harsh critique of black women, and justly so, because they have a track record. It's not something that we're making up and pulling out of our butts. I'm trying to not cuss on this one, because I have the esteemed professor before me is a wordsmith and knows how to get his point across without using those 7 words, which, black people make like 50, but you know what I'm talking about. Even in this space, amongst black men, we try to numb our scholars instead of allowing our scholars to actually critique, just rightly so, whatever they see. And there's some things even in the manosphere that need critique. And even we follow the cues of our women sometimes by doing stuff like that. Instead of arguing the point, seeing if the critique is just, seeing if the critique is proper, seeing if the critique is constructive, we do the same thing sometimes in this space. But that is a different video. But Dr. Curry said something that I've said for a very long time, and I started it when one of the first videos I actually put on my Ibmore channel was about the Moynihan Report. And I gave an analysis of the Moynihan Report. I've also talked about other things like the fruits of the civil rights movement went to who? White women and black women. And it wouldn't have been so bad if black women got the lion's share of what we fought for, but they didn't. The lion's share was given to Miss Ann, and black women didn't say nothing because they got a little piece. There was a segment in Nathan and Julia Hare's book, and I think I put it in a video, about black women being the liaison between black men, plight of black men and black men's labor and black men's lives and the white world. And Black Lives Matter, BLM, is just the latest example of that, where black men saying the same thing, black men protesting for their interests, as white men do all the time, are attacked, and attacked with extreme prejudice. Remember a male Black Lives Matter protester had a small incident with a bullhorn, not physically touched a cop, with a bullhorn. They sent 20 cops to his apartment and dogs to get him out of his apartment. 20, because they wanted to mute his voice with extreme prejudice. And because it's not the order of things, black women are supposed to be able to be the liaison between them and the white world, just like they always have been. Black women are the one that's sitting next to Master and Mrs. and would talk to Mrs. or Massa with her head down and holding her handkerchief and explaining something or other that asked for a favor that her husband needed, because her husband as a man couldn't go to the Massa or the white man directly. She's always been the liaison between the white world and, say, the mother's son, the black woman's son. I remember Sister Asada talking about her son going into high school, and the coach wanted her son to play on a sports team. And Sister Asada said that her husband was more concerned about her son's grades and said he couldn't play on the sports team until his grades come up, which is something that I've done with my own son. And just like with my own son, the gynocracy overrode it. In my case, the gynocracy overrode my requests, even though they were very rooted in plain common sense for the boy's own good. Same thing happened with Sister Asada and the coach. The coach told her husband to his face, the father to his face, that we'll see about that because I'm going to talk to his mother. That white coach says that black man was not allowed to speak for his family, to speak to white power. It was actually the job of the woman. That happens in the academy right now, where the only legitimate voices for black people are black women. That's how come black women are in politics right now. That's why you have a female vice president. In fact, the first female vice president in history, which I'm sure the white women are not too happy about. But she is the liaison between the black world and President Biden. And so are the other congressmen and the other senators. Remember with the crack era, when Los Angeles had gone through the crack era, that the CIA had helped distribute into Los Angeles. It wasn't a male black congressman that actually could run into the Senate and protest. It was actually two black women, because they are the authorized voices for the black community. And black women know this. And as Tommy J. Curry says, we keep getting blamed for patriarchy, for power that we never had. That boggles my mind. How can low-caste, poor, hardworking black men go out and protest and lift their people out of Jim Crow through the sweat of their brow, through their blood and their sacrifice of their bodies, lift our people out of Jim Crow, out of this position in the caste system, not get rewarded, because black men didn't get diddly squat, and a little bit they did get back in the 70s got killed during the Bakke decision in 1976. So from 1968 to 1976, 8 short years, they reversed all that stuff and gave it to white women. And then what was left over, they gave it to black women and whoever else came after. Then black men who fought for it, who actually set the table, who actually built the table, cooked the food and put it on the table, had to wait for leftovers. And then your own women blame you for being misogynist, claim that you actually held them down, claim that you actually oppressed them when it never happened. Like he said, they castigate the brothers that are still in jail for protesting, Mumia Abdul-Jamal, still in prison. You castigate them, you look down on them, and yet you have women that are not part of the class, never grew up in the struggle, never had a bad day, get rich off the death of black men in America. And black men can't even protest to get their boys a decent education. Black men died to help solve the plight, fix the plight of their own kind, and somebody else is getting wealthy off it. And black scholars are not allowed to question that, not allowed to critique it, because you get a root canal, that shit hurts. Pardon my French. That hurts. Your nerves are going off trying to protect your body. Now, in that case of a root canal or tooth being pulled, okay, for them to effectively do that kind of surgery, they have to numb it. They have to silence the nerves. But something is not right with these movements. There's something that's not right with these things, with these political moves inside the black community. And they constantly have the thumb on black men's necks. There's a lot of scholars that are in the academy right now that see what's going on inside the academy that is not good, is not helpful for the black community, and they're not allowed to speak. They're not allowed to question. And only the brave few that do raise their heads up and do speak out and do question and do point out the wrongs and ills of something, an organization like Black Lives Matter. And they're just one, okay? There's many others that we don't even see. They're just the most obvious one. Like Dr. Curry says, Dr. Tommy says, this could have been solved years ago when they first spoke out because they saw this coming, but they were numbed. They weren't allowed to question, because if they questioned it, people would have saw through the facade. Black Lives Matter should have been able to do good work, regardless of it not being grassroots. But the thing is, we're not allowed to question it. Black men are not allowed to question. Hell, on my own channel, I had to fight black women, had to fight black men, and I had to fight YouTube. I had to fight the powers that be, because they want to keep the Novocaine on my channel, on my voice. They always have. On this sick channel, I didn't even have 500 subs, and YouTube was trying to put the kibosh on me. So I'm glad that the Frank Underwood of the Black Manosphere spoke out. And I very seldom hear Dr. Tommy speak this way, which is why I wanted to present it, which is why I wanted to comment on it. One of those rare times where you're actually going to see an elite scholar like Tommy J. Curry speak so candidly and so passionately and so openly, well, about not just Black Lives Matter, but how he feels about the things going on inside Black intelligentsia, and how black men are suppressed, and how black men, the black males, the black liberators in this country for our people got a raw deal. And they wonder why black men are pissed. They say that black men are angry and hate their women. The fact is, we're not. We don't do that. We don't hate our women. We're not angry. The thing is, my question is, which is a better question, is why aren't we? Anybody else getting the short end of the stick like we got? If black women got the short end of the stick like we just got over the past 60 years, they'd be burning down cities. If white men got the same raw deal that black men got over the past 60 years, there'd be a revolution. If white women got the same raw deal that black men got, they'd overturn this society, brick by brick. Black men can't even protest, can't even raise their voice on YouTube. Legitimate questions. I've shut down at least 5 or 6 women on this platform just by asking legitimate questions, not going after them personally, not talking about their edges or not talking about their hair. Legitimate questions on the subjects that they were talking about. Just pointing up legitimate facts with legitimate counter arguments. I've shut down at least 5 women on this platform, and we're attacked. Not because we're out in the streets, not because we're beating up on women, not because we're burning down cities or protesting or marching on the Capitol. We're shut down for merely asking a question because the nerves are going off, because there's something wrong and they're trying to numb it. Just like they go after the professors in the academy, they can't even speak against the gynocracy without fear of losing their jobs. Somebody like Tommy Curry, who's elite, world class, brilliant mind, of any color, any place, anywhere, anyhow in the world. World-class mind. Can't speak openly. There's something wrong in the black community. Jordan Peterson, who isn't half of Tommy Curry, is worth $20 million. He can go all over the world speaking and write books. And a black man like Tommy Curry can't even break the bestseller list. There's something wrong in the black community. There's something wrong in this world. Anyway, that's all the rant I got. I just had to put an addendum to Professor Curry's kudos to him, oofs, because his rant was epic. It was only 4 minutes, but it was epic. And I know he won't, but I wish he would do more of it, because it's the kind of fire that we need. Every now and then, I tell Dr. Johnson, every now and then, Martin's got to talk like Malcolm, and vice versa. Every now and then, we need a lot of fire. But with that, I'm going to jump off of here. This is BGS out, and I'll see you guys in the